Okay, I have a customer or potential customer that has the need to engrave uh, control panels. So they'll have a text file that they'll have to label a room and have different on-off switches, LED lights, that kind of thing. So he was hoping to use some Rowmark, which is a product line that has multiple colors. So it's got, in this case, a blue color at the top. And then he sent me initially the heavyweights, which has a 16th inch thick blue layer, and then it gets down to white, and then it's got blue on the backside. It's a great product. You can use them inside, outside. They're UV protected. I mean, it's great for signage. The problem is he has text that's the way his initial design is. It's only a little proud of an eighth of an inch tall. So I tried that with a 30-degree V-bit or 60-degree or a tapered end mill with the text that small. The shoulders that were created because of the taper overlapped the other sides of the text. So I'm going to play with a couple different setups, and here's how I do it. So I typically will get just a small sample and define a depth of cut, and then define a which bit I'm using. So I'm going to use a 60-degree V-bit, a 30-degree, and an end mill. So I'm going to start at 0.012 depth. The thickness of the newer material is 0.010 apparently. So we're going to try this and see if it gets down into the white layer clean enough, and that it's easy to read. And if not, I'm going to take this, basically move it up in the design software, but change the size from a 0.1374, which is what he sent, to a 0.1874, 3/16. Maybe bump to a quarter, and I can redesign the product that they're doing and have it work, but we want to see if we can lessen some of that redesign work and work off their existing drawings of what they have so far. So let's get into this, and I'm going to save this information the normal way of saving it to the toolpath, and then send it to the machine. You've seen that before, so I'm going to pause the video and we'll get right on to the machine. Again, with this, we're just trying to figure out the proper feeds and speeds. I've turned down the rotation slow, which is typical for plastics and acrylics. Typically, you want to play with your feed speeds to keep the feed speed up so we don't have melting. What I'm going to do is when I turn on the shop vac, I have an exhaust hose connected to the shop vac, so I can blow at the spindle, or at the tip of the spindle, of the bit, as it's into the material, and I can keep that air moving, so I can hopefully cut down on the amount of melting and get the swarf taken away. Okay, so and I didn't surface the spoilboard, so there could be some irregularity between the depth here of the surface of the material, but this is the font size that was given, a 1.1374, and at 0.012 depth, it's okay. It is getting into it, but it could be a little cleaner. So by being a little deeper, it would take and cut away more of the blue, because I'm sure I could go in there with a pick and clean it all out, but who wants to do that? So at 0.012, not quite as good. I think it would go down a little bit, but by going down deeper, we're going to have shoulders. It's going to get a little wider here at the top. So we have to watch that we don't have the letters and the numbers overlap each other. So we may have to go with a little larger font size as well. And again, that was the 60-degree engraving bit. So I'm going to try a 30-degree, and then I'm going to try a tapered end mill, a 30-second tapered end mill. So I'll do a tool change, and we'll be right back. And so here I've touched off the 30-second tapered end mill. And while it's cutting, I'm going to look for the 30-degree. I didn't see it initially. Okay, with just rubbing it with my finger a few times, the 30-second did a nice job. Again, you can see the difference in the depth of cut based on how it was held down. I have one shot of glue going underneath here. You can see it there, holding this down. So ideally, someone that does this all the time, you'd be using a vacuum table that you'd surface periodically and keep it dead parallel to the shaft, to the spindle. But that's a nice look to be just a very quick setup, no picking, just a light rubbing. And again, even rubbing the letters above it there's still more swarf connected to it. You can feel it. So the tapered end mill looks good at that size. Again, and I can redesign the setup where I can go with a larger size. But this is much better material setup. And you'll see, if we look at this, let's get it to focus right there, if it will. You can see this is very thin. It's a .010 material thickness for the top core color. And then let's look at the heavyweights. 1 second, I'm going to pause it and walk over to the other where I've got the heavyweights stored. So this is the heavyweights, and this has got a 16th inch top layer. And so what you're doing is when you engrave, you start playing with how close the letters get. And so we just didn't really find a good setup with it. Of course, this is I can repeat this, but by the time I get deep enough, everything tends to overlap because it creates shoulders because you have a shaped bit. But so we're just trying to find the right mix of material, in this case thickness of the top of the material, to get to the secondary color. So we're finding the right mix of material, bit shape, 30 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree, the tapered end mill, etc., and depth of cut. Okay, so since we liked the way the .012 depth of cut looked, I changed the depth of cut. I'm going to run it one more time above those lines as a .014 so we can compare the two. So I've loaded the job and I'll hit go. The tool's already chucked. It's already been checked. The depth has already been, the depth of tool has already been set. So we'll just let it run. Again, I'm working off of tape, CA glue, and I have not surfaced this to the spindle. Well, I'm watching it, and it appears it's taken 2 passes, so I'm going to stop this. That should certainly be done in 1 pass. So let me stop this, and we'll just rerun it from here. So I hit stop. Let me zoom out here so you can see I hit stop, and I'm going to cancel the job. It raises the spindle, turns it off. Once it comes all the way up, I'm free to give it another command. So it's up, so I'm going to back up a view and turn off the shop vac. I don't want to listen to it. So I'm going to go back in and reprogram it. Again, programming is important, so I'm going to go back into VCarve and change that to 1 pass because that certainly should be there. I'm not sure why I had it set that way, so I'm going to pause it and be right back. Okay, when I'm at the machine, I always reload another job and then come back in and grab the job that I want. And I check the name here. This is the Rowmark with a thin top, 1/32 tapered end mill with .04, so that's good. I should just be able to run it. I don't have to change anything, and it's good to go. Hitting the start button and hit the go button. So a little deeper depth of cut in 1 pass. It's the same depth of cut as was programmed for the prior 3 letters, or 3 numbers, but we should do this in 1 pass. And again, I may do better to come back with with some air blowing on it to move stuff out, move the swarf out. This is just the exhaust hose from the shop vac. I don't know the speed that was programmed on the machine, but this is awful slow. So I'm going to come back here and just pull the speed up. So whatever I had programmed, I'm now up 50% on the inches per minute that it's cutting through the material. I'm going to pause it. When we're done, I'll move the machine out of the way. We'll look at it. And I'll show you how quickly it is to rub it. Like it was just taking my finger and rubbing it across it. Picked everything up and moved it. So I had a nice clean view to the white. So it's done. Zoom out. The Z head is moving up. Once it finishes, then I can give it another command, and that'll be to get out of the way. And we'll get a look at it. Okay, so it's the top line that we're looking at. And I'm just going to take my finger and rub it across it. It's got a little more texture to it that hadn't cleared than when I did it here on the lower line. And it had melted on top of it. I can feel it. So just running my finger across it, you know, I can't say that I'm that thrilled with it. I like this depth of cut better. So it's all in playing with the feeds and speeds, and that's the machine's going to do what it's told. So the question is, how do we get everything the way we want it? Now I'm going to try a nylon brush and see what that does. Okay, so this time on the other piece, I'm touched off on the corner. I've set my tool length, and then I'm going to run the tapered end mill, but with two different lines on it. I'm going to do the 0.012 depth of cut, and then jump to the 0.014 depth of cut, but on the second piece. So we'll hit OK and go, and I'll come back to it in just a sec. I don't know whether you want to watch this or not. I mean, that's the thing. I hate to make the videos too long. We get what it's doing. Right now it's raising the head, touching off on the Z limit switch so it knows where it is, coming on down to the safe zone. I think I've probably programmed it at 0.2 of an inch above the material. And I'm going to speed this up a bit. I'm at 150% of the programmed speed. I've got to look up. I don't know what was in there. And I need to check and see how many passes this was set. I don't know that I changed my tool database before to get the depth of cut in one pass. So I'll look at that. Okay, people often ask about repeatability. So this is down and cut. And I'm going to come back in. I wasn't sure if I changed the depth of cut between those two lines. And I'm saying one is 0.014 and one's 0.012 deep. So you want to see repeatability. Let's let it focus. You want to see repeatability. That's already cut. I've just loaded the job. Well, I went back to VCarve and set the job up and reloaded it so that it's going to do both lines. I don't know if you can see the graphics. Yeah, so it's doing both lines with different depths of cut. And so you want to see repeatability. We'll go right back on top of the same text with a 30-second tapered end mill. This is a small, fine bit. But people ask about this all the time. And now again, our issue can easily be that this is held up on CA glue and painter's tape rather than a vacuum tape. So the depth of cut may be an issue, but it is something that we can deal with depending on how we set up the machine for a particular, or how a customer decides to set up the machine themselves. So we'll zoom in. Yeah, it's having a hard time focusing. And I'm going to put the exhaust back on it, so I'm going to reach down under the table, grab the gray one. And again, this would be real easy to rig up a setup like this on your own machine. That's the beauty. The SmartBench, depending on what you need, it's so easy to modify and tweak to get it to do exactly what you want. This isn't compressed air. This is just air coming out of the exhaust of the shop vent. You can do compressed air too. But I use this to blow off the table and do other things if I'm really hogging out a sign or I've got a lot of swarf because of what I'm cutting. I use this to blow off the table while the machine is working. Keeps it simple. Focus. Lighting. Now it's going to the other line. It should be a little deeper depth of cut. I'll come back to that in just a second. Okay, so rather than reprogram it, what I did was I went to the home. Said go home, which it is. Once it got there, I'm going to have it run the tool tip down to the zero touch off, and then I'm just going to model. I'm not going to change the programming, but I want to show another technique that you can do. So I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to look at the screen. I want to go to the main screen, and I can tell it to touch go to the Z0, and we'll see the spindle drop. Now that should be dead on, roughly on the corner, but it should be touching the material top. But if it's not, or if I want to change the depth of cut, what I can do is I can fool it. I can change the movements down to 0.01, and I can tell it to go down 0.01, and then I'll set that as my material. Or I can go, you know, this is variable. I can set it to whatever distance down I want. But I'm going to say go down 0.01 and set that. Well, actually, I'm going to go down another one and see how that looks. Again, we're just playing with the depth of cut on the two different materials, and there's a variable in there for not having surfaced the MDF that I've got to put on. So I'm going to do that, and again, this will now be the third time that we're going to cut that small 0.1374 text height on the machine. I'm just going to jack up the speed. I know I don't have to go slow. I'm going to go 150% of what it is, whatever it was programmed. The key on this, any of these multicolor ones, you need to be clear through the top color to get into the bottom color so that it's nice and clean. And you want to have enough swarf that it's lifting all the debris out and clean away. I'm going to grab the hose. And it is cutting a little deeper. And we're talking, again, 10,000ths of an inch for each tap, each adjustment we made. But I did this without reprogramming. Of course, I could have gone back up, and if this was something I was going to do all the time, I may have a different depth of cut that I want to use on the two different materials. We're just playing. We're just learning what these materials do, and I really like them. It gives a really nice look. And this customer needs them to label control panels. You'll have some indicator lights, some circles cut in for LEDs and things like that, but it'll have like a room label, whether something is turned on or off, or a fault state, that kind of thing. So his existing drawings had the small, the 0.1374 text size. They gave me design parameters that I could change it, and that's fine, but we wanted to play with what we had, and I wanted to play with these materials. So with this thin-faced material, it works well with this 30-second tapered ball ring. Tapered end, sorry. And once this finishes, and again, I'm resting my arm and the hose on the beam. It's moving with the beam. Again, it's going to be fine. Once this finishes, we'll look at it again. This will be the third time going through the same text with small numbers. The machine does exactly what we tell it. We just have to play with depth of cut, tool shape, that kind of thing, based on the material, whether the material has a thick skin or like this. This is the Rowmark with the thinner skin. It's finished. Zoom out so you can see a little better. It's raising the Z head up. When it gets to the top, then I can do another command. In the meantime, I can switch screens and stuff. Turn it back to infinity so that I can move it to wherever I want. It's up. So I'll get the head out of the way. Grab my little brush and head over there and give it a quick wipe. So again, we can see the difference is in the material not being exactly flat to the spindle. So to secure that, what you do is you put a the spoilboard down. In this case, I'm using 3/4 MDF, but I can use a surfacing bit and surface it first so that it's dead perpendicular to the spindle. And then we won't have this, because I mean, we're talking 10,000th of an inch or so. It's into the white, but just barely, and over here it's deeper into it. So, and it's consistent across the part, basically. So it's a good fit for this, but look at the engraving. Do we see multiple lines? No, they're right on top of each other, and that's 3 times going into that text. 0.1374 tall, 2 different depths of cut, and just wiped off with a nylon brush. So this material will work if it can work for the customer. He may need something thicker because of the lights and the switches and stuff that he uses. So then we have to find something that has a nice thin top. You can't get a tapered bit to cut a 1/16 of an inch deep with this size text and not have shoulders that interfere with the other the adjacent letters or numbers. So we've got to come up with something that will work for him. But we just got to look around. That's what the good plastics suppliers are for. So as you see, the key to doing the multicolored work is a combination of things. You've got to involve your depth of cut to get to the second color and get deeply into it so that you can get some of the swarf out of the way and have it all cleaned up. So it's a combination of depth of cut, the shape of the tool that you're using, and the size of the font or the vectors that you're working with. In this case, this was a 0.1374, very small font. We just have to find the right material now, because I think the customer is going to want to have a 1/4 inch material. So if I'm going to check with Rowmark and see if they have a 1/4 inch material with the thinner skin, rather than use the heavyweights, because that's not going to work with this size font. Can we redesign all of his products? Sure. Do we want to? No. Let's just get the right product mix of materials with the needs of the customer. But the Yeti SmartBench, it's repeatable. The engraving and doing it multiple times on the exact same font, exact same place, it shows how strong it is. So that should answer a lot of questions regarding repeatability and engraving. So if we can help you in any way, give us a call. Our contact information is in the links, and we'd be happy to help you in any way we can. Thanks.